Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer, and today we're here to talk about Civ 7. So it's been about 6 months since Civ 7 released, and there have been a number of changes, and I wanted to kind of go over those changes and talk about the state of the game and where it is right now. So I think it's no secret, at least in the online realm, that a lot of people are being very critical of Civ 7, and I think, honestly, it is rightfully so. So the devs obviously are working hard to try to fix this, so let's talk about some of the things that they fixed today, some of the things that have improved, and some of the things that still need to be improved. In fact, I'm probably going to do an entire separate video on the things that I think are wrong with Civ 7, because I think there are really some things that are very fundamentally just not fun with this game. In case you're unfamiliar, with every Civ game release, we kind of go through this cycle where the game comes out, everybody is generally not a fan, everybody says, oh, the previous Civ was so much better. It happened with Civ 6, it even, believe it or not, it even happened with Civ 5. When Civ 5 released, people said Civ 5 sucks, Civ 4 was so much better. Nowadays, obviously, as we get further into the cycle of, a few updates, a few DLC releases, then the Civ game becomes good and everybody loves it again. So right now with Civ 7, we're obviously still in the phase where everybody hates it, but with Civ 7, I'm honestly a little bit concerned that we might not reach the point where it is generally loved like Civ 5 and Civ 6 were. And because of the fact that we're still in such an early phase of Civ 7, that's been why I haven't been making really any YouTube videos about it, because it feels pointless to make guides about a game when half of the systems are going to change anyways in a few months, and then I just have to make the guides all over again. So it feels a little bit stupid to do that, so that's kind of why I haven't been doing it. I also just have not been personally playing Civ 7 myself because I don't enjoy the game, and I'll talk about why in probably a future video. So, enough negativity to start. Let's start and talk about what actually improved with Civ 7 since it launched, and what things have just changed, or not necessarily improvements or, things that were made worse, but just changes that happened. And then I'm going to talk about some things that, of course, are still bad. But as I mentioned, just lightly touch on those in this video, and then probably do an entire dedicated video just talking about the things that are still bad about Civ 7. So let's go ahead and start off with some improvements, and a lot of the improvements thus far have been in the sense of polish and things of that sort. So there have been various UI improvements, things where the text was previously not aligned and they fixed that. Some additional text here, some additional text there, things like that. Various UI improvements to try to go ahead and improve the UI. I will say, on this front, the UI still sucks. It is not good. There's just so much information missing from the UI, and it still is just... It doesn't feel particularly clean or intuitive, and still, I do not know how this is still a problem. In the research tree, there are still gaps between the branches. That is like... How does that happen? Some people paid like, what, $110? I don't remember how much the Founders Edition cost for this game. That's something that you probably could hire an intern and have them do in 3 days. At least, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm not a game developer, so maybe this is much more of a complex issue than I think, but how can you not properly align the sprites for this after 6 months of the game being out and, however many years of development before that? It just baffles my mind. I'm sure the other thing is, once again, I don't want to just give the devs a hard time because, I don't know what the situation is at Firaxis in game development and everything like that, but it's such an easy quality thing that, it just makes the game look cheap, and it still isn't fixed after all of these patches. It blows my mind, but maybe it's not a priority, maybe it's not as easy of a fix as I think, but just little issues like that exist everywhere in this UI that just drive me a little bit insane. So in addition to some UI changes, there are a lot of new game setup options and additions. Speaking of game setup and things like that, one of the things that's changed has to deal with the age transitions. So now they have this continuity setting that is the new default for age transitions. So now your units will stay in place and get upgraded just where they're standing. You can also transition with ships, settlers, scouts, and a few other units. And in addition to this, there are also some changes to how relationships with other leaders change after the era change. I think they kind of tend to work their way towards neutral after the era change to kind of, reflect some passage of time and things like that. But continuity is now the default, and then there's a setting that you can have to switch to the old version, which is called regroup, where your units go into your cities and things like that. There also are some changes, some additional options to do things like get rid of the crises, because people don't like the crises. But these are some just new changes. There's new options. Obviously, options are always good because it means you can play how you want to play. But it's just a little bit confusing to me because the age transition and the crisis system are like two of the most, standout features in Civ 7. And already after only 6 months, they've basically added options that you can just throw that all out and just and play with this different system. Turn off the crises, do this continuity thing. The thing I'll also say, the age transition to me is still one of the things that is horrendously bad with Civ 7 that totally ruins the flow of the game. Even with this new continuity mode, for instance, if you are at war with someone and you are one turn away from taking their city and then the age transitions, all your units are kicked out. You're no longer going to be taking their city. You're no longer at war with them. Your units and their units are now the exact same because everybody starts with the same units in a new era, obviously unless you have any unique units. And it totally kills any momentum and flow there. That still to me is one of the biggest problems with this game. Even with this new continuity setting, there is essentially very little continuity between the ages, which just really, it makes it so unfun because it feels like you're basically just starting a new game that is vaguely related to your previous game, but not quite. In addition to changes, a good thing here, they did also add an end of age warning, so it'll tell you whenever there are 10 turns left in an age, which is good for helping you prepare for the end of the age. Before, it felt kind of abrupt that just suddenly the age is over and maybe you didn't get to finish everything you were doing. Now there is at least a 10 turns left warning, which is nice. I'll stay on positive things for now. You can also queue research now, finally. So whenever this game first came out, you could not queue research, even though queuing research has been a feature in Civ for I don't even know how many games in a row now, how many years. For some reason, this game launched without the queuing research feature, which once again is another thing like those, the little gaps in the research tree sprites. It just baffles me. And I was thinking about this. It's like whenever Battlefield 2042 came out without a scoreboard. Like, such a fundamental thing in a game like this that has existed for literally like tens of years. How did it not end up in the game at the start? But it is in there now. So now you can queue research, which is good. So it's one of those things, I'm happy that it's there, but I'm frustrated because it should have been there in the first place anyways. Auto Explore on Scouts also now exists. Once again, a feature from previous Civ games. This one, they claim that this one wasn't added intentionally because they wanted people to use the new scouting features, which I don't know if that's true or not, but sure, whatever, that's fair, because some of the new scouting features are kind of nice. But Auto Explore on Scouts is now there, which is good. There's also large and huge maps that are now available, which is another good thing. I'll add this with a bad thing. I still think that the map generation in this game is really bad. And I'll talk about it a lot more in depth when I make that second video, but one of the biggest problems with this game is that the map generation is so predictable that every single game seems to feel the same. One of the other things that they've added, which I think is really nice, there is more narration from Gwendolyn Christie on the loading screens. That's another thing. Whenever this game first came out, it was one of the first things I noticed. The narration on the loading screen was like one sentence, two sentences. It felt, once again, just like rushed and cheap. Now there's a lot more narration there, which I think is very nice in terms of making the game feel a little bit better. It's one of those things that doesn't really impact gameplay at all. But it does feel better in terms of, the quality of the game. So that's another thing that I think is really nice. One thing that I think still is very not nice is the leader interaction screen, the diplomacy screen. This weird thing where both leaders stand on the other side of the screen, it just doesn't make sense to me. And the thing that I honestly find way worse than that is that there is almost no voice acting for anything. When you meet somebody or, they declare war, there's like a little voice line, but when you do basically anything with diplomacy, everybody just makes the sound. And the second you realize it, it's so frustrating because you just hear that sound over and over and over again. It just feels, once again, it's another thing that feels like they didn't want to have a voice actor to do all these lines, so they just made everybody say because that was easier. More things on the changes. They did overhaul some of the town bonuses. They changed up what the town specializations do. There's obviously a full change list here if you want to take a look at what actually changed. This is one that I think is good because I think it's another thing. I feel like towns are a big part of Civ 7 that are currently a major weak point. I personally don't really understand what the towns are supposed to do because they just kind of feel worse than cities in almost every way. I've yet to be able to find like an instance where I'm like, oh, this will be a great, whatever, resort town or something, and I'm going to get huge bonuses from this being a resort town or a mining town or something. Like, the town bonuses just feel like I click something the town specialties feel like I click something minor changes, and I'm like, okay, so what? So it's another thing that I think is a big weakness, but it seems like it's something that they are aware of and they're working on to try to make that a little bit better. So those are some of the improvements and changes, and as I mentioned, there's just a lot I feel in this game that is really not up to pace with where it should be. This game honestly probably could have had another year, maybe even 2 years of development time before I would consider it really ready to release. As I mentioned, UI still is not good. So many features feel half-baked and just very shallow. The map generation is really not good. The age transitions still feel really jarring, and that it just kind of totally ruins the flow of the game. And at the end of the day, I feel like every game just feels like the same in Civ 7. Like, whenever I only have like 25 hours maybe played in this game. The first few games that I played, I feel like I was having fun. And then after maybe 3 or 4 games, I was just like, okay, I'm doing the exact same thing I've been doing in every other game. Which, like, I cannot bring myself to play past Antiquity in this game at the current moment. So there's still a lot of things that need improved in Civ 7, and as mentioned, I'm going to make an entire video talking about some of the core fundamental things that are wrong with this game, because I think a lot of the things wrong with Civ 7 are not things that can be fixed with simple patches. It's kind of like core things that are wrong with the entire game design philosophy of the game. So make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that, but let me know what you think about Civ 7 in the comments section below. Are you enjoying Civ 7? Are you not liking Civ 7? The only thing I'll, add on to the end here, the devs obviously care about this game. They are putting in work to improve it, but I just think there's so much of a mountain of work here that needs to be done that it's going to be a while until this game is actually like up to a very good and entertaining playable point. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section below. But thank everyone for watching. I have been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for some more Civilization 7 content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.